and welcome to the 2022 School Board Candidate Forum. My name is Anthony Gary, and I'm the Senior Class President of Homestead High School Student Government, and I welcome you all to the 2022 School Board Candidate Forum. Our intent on hosting this forum is to enable voting students, teachers, faculty members, and our Southwest Allen County community to learn more about each candidate. The decisions the school board make affect our staff and more than 7,700 students in the district. In the upcoming election, voters will have the opportunity to elect 2 school board members. This year, there are 5 candidates running for those 2 seats. The members elected will encounter critical issues that will demand them to fulfill their responsibilities to the students and to the taxpayers. By the end of the night, we hope you have a better idea about how these candidates would react when faced with those issues. It should be noted that Homestead Student Government does not endorse any candidate. I will now introduce to you the candidates from left to right. Our first candidate is Stephanie Veit. Our second candidate is Amanda Tokus. Our third candidate is incumbent Doug Copley. Our fourth candidate is Dawn Fritz, and our fifth candidate is Kim Moppert. Here is how the forum will work tonight. 6 members of student government will pose 6 questions to each candidate. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer the question. We met with the candidates on October 13th to determine the order of who would answer the questions. The candidates drew numbers, and Ms. Veit will answer first, followed by Ms. Tokus, Mr. Copley, Ms. Fritz, and Ms. Moppert. We will alternate thereafter. These 3 minutes will be free from interruption by the other candidates and especially the audience. When the candidate has spoken for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, our timekeeper, sophomore Trent George, who is also a member of the student government, will raise a yellow card. When a candidate has reached 3 minutes, the timekeeper will raise a red card and ask the candidates to stop talking. Each candidate will have 2 minutes at the end to make a final statement. On October 13th, the candidates also drew numbers to see who would make the first closing remark. Ms. Tokus will go first, Mr. Copley second, Ms. Moppert third, Ms. Veit will go fourth, and Ms. Fritz will go fifth. When the candidate has spoken for 1 minute and 30 seconds, our timekeeper will again raise a yellow card, and then after 2 minutes, he will raise a yellow card and ask the candidate to stop talking. During the forum, there will be no dialogue between the audience and the candidates. However, the audience will have an opportunity to interact with the candidates following the forum. We ask that everyone please respect the rules we have established for tonight's forum. Lastly, tonight's event will also be live streamed on YouTube by the award-winning student broadcasting team from Homestead Media. And the broadcast will be available for replay after the event ends tonight. I'm now happy to introduce my fellow senior student government members who will be asking tonight's questions along with me. Kenny Austin, Stella Boothman, Libby Minobi, Michelle Obioma, and Gayun Song. We are now ready to begin tonight's forum. I'll pose the first question. Ms. Veit, you drew number 1 and will answer first. Our first question is, what qualifies you to be a member of the school board?
Thank you, Anthony. And since I'm lucky enough to start off first tonight, I want to start and end with gratitude. So thank you to the student government and the media students for hosting all 5 candidates tonight. We know that it is a lot of work for the students and the school, and we very much appreciate getting to speak to everyone tonight. My husband and I have had a child in the district here at Southwest since 2009. So we have gone all the way from elementary school to middle school, high school, and we are in the thick of the challenges that our students are facing right now. I get the same emails you do. The night before, you have no bus for your student in the morning. So I get it, and we're right in the thick of this. 4 years ago, I was fortunate enough to be chosen to a statewide leadership class called the Richard G. Lugar Excellence in Public Service, named after our late Senator Richard Lugar. This leadership class is designed to prepare Republican women to be elected or appointed to government positions. I myself never thought I would be the one that was running. I expected to be assisting other women in that position, but I find myself at a time where my strengths and my skill sets align with the greatest needs of the district. I've spent the last 20 years in construction, and in finance. And I spent 3.5 years attending school board meetings all over the state of Indiana. And I learned really quickly that school financing is very complex, and so are the methods and options available to schools for construction projects. I have experience in both of those areas. I have served on leadership positions in nonprofit boards and appointed boards in our community for the last 15 years. The most productive boards have members with a variety of skill, knowledge, and diversity of thought. I believe that I bring all those things to the board at Southwest Allen County Schools. I know the role of a board member, and I'm excited to use my skills and talents to help the district, and more importantly, our kids.
Thank you, Ms. Veit. Ms. Tokus, it is now your turn. What qualifies you to be a member of the school board?
Good evening. Thank you again to the Homestead Student Government Club for putting on this event. And thank you everyone for joining here tonight. To give you some background, I'm a lifelong resident here in Allen County. I have a daughter in middle school and a stepdaughter that attended Homestead High School. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and a master's degree in business management. For 15 years of my adult career, I served in law enforcement on the probation side, with about 9 years working for the United States Probation and Pretrial Services Office as a specialist. I worked with sex offenders, violent offenders, and many other offenders that had a background with mental illness. And then I left my career to launch a business, and I ultimately launched 4 successful franchises that I owned and operated, boots on the ground, from build out to everything you can imagine in owning those businesses and managing those teams in Fort Wayne and in Mishawaka. And I did that for about 9 years. Currently, I own and operate my own franchise consulting and brokering company, and I help people across the country get into business for themselves, as well as international clients that want to come here and become a citizen here in the United States. So, but the bigger question is really why I'm running. I think we can all agree that this is an important election because it affects our children and their education, and that affects not only our community but this great country. So I take it very serious. And about 18 months ago, when my journey began, I attended a school board meeting for the first time because I was questioning some of the funding that we were going to consider here in our district, and I felt that there was somewhat of an overreach of government with some of the mandates and things that they were wanting to have our school district do. That led me to attend many other school board meetings, talking to parents and grandparents and teachers and retired teachers and taxpayers. And through that, I started to learn that there were some progressive ideologies permeating in our school district. Along the lines of pedagogy, and we're talking about critical race theory and gender theory. Is it a lot? I would say it's subtle. I would say that this is something that maybe isn't here permeating all the time, but we have to recognize that there are organizations, including the teachers' unions, universities, special interest groups, and even our current federal administration that is promoting these ideologies in our schools. And I don't think it aligns with the majority of community values here in our district. And so I would also say that, it only takes a few people to change the dynamics and the culture in a district. And so.
Thank you, Ms. Tokus. Mr. Copley, it is now your turn. What qualifies you to be a member of the school board?
Well, thanks to everybody for coming out tonight. It's great to see so many familiar faces and smiles. It's appreciate the student government doing everything tonight. I'm blessed to have been on the board the past year. I chuckle because my first meeting was in this room with probably 300 people, and so we've had a chance to vote on some very near and dear topics to everybody in this room, from the teachers' contracts to a $100 million budget. And probably one of the most controversial ones was pushing back on the quarantine mandate and basically letting kids be back in school. And I think that's near and dear to everybody's heart because the test scores are starting to prove that was the right call. And I'll tell you, though, it wasn't easy. We had to evaluate those decisions. We had a lot of pushback. Homestead went on to IU. Sorry for the Purdue guys. Daughter-in-law went to Purdue, so I always have to throw that in. And we have a grandson now in the district, so it's kind of cool to come full circle. And so really my why is to look out for almost all 8,000 kids in the district, all of our 475-ish teachers, staff, everybody in this room, parents. And I've been blessed from a corporate standpoint. I've been the CEO of one of the largest rooftop solar construction companies in North America. And I don't attribute it to being special. I attribute it to just hard work, grind, making stuff happen. And we were recently sold, and I think that construction background really comes into help right now with $169 million project right around us. And everything you read, inflation, cost control, change orders, are real issues. And so I think we've had a lot of constructive meetings with the board, with our key vendors. Hagerman has been terrific. I'd like to put out a plug, and they've really helped us control those costs. So that's real, and I think that background in construction goes a long way. Personally, I love to give back. We've been in the district so long. I was the president of Don Ayers Little League with 1,000 boys and girls, softball, baseball. Our boys participated in the radio TV program themselves with Mr. Schenkel. I was involved, president of 2 neighborhood associations. I see Troy Boyle over here, who helped coach with his brother on the Homestead varsity team for a number of years as a volunteer assistant. So I think if we look at all right, somebody who's truly involved in the community, wants to stay involved in the community, that's me. And as everybody said, we've got so many positive things in the district and quite a few things that we need to address and keep our eye on as well. So I thank everybody for being out here tonight, and I truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Copley. Ms. Fritz, it's your turn. What qualifies you to be a member of the school board?
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here tonight. I know we all appreciate it and the hard work of these students. They've been working months on this project. My husband of 33 years and I have lived in Southwest for over 16 years. Both of our children, my son and my daughter, both are graduates of Homestead. I have several skills that I hope to bring to the school board. Before moving to Fort Wayne, I worked in the administration building as a clerk for the Maryville School Corp. While there I obtained many skills, I had to read and abide by the teacher's contract. I was also in charge of background checks and making sure that the teachers and substitutes all had valid licenses. I am also a huge number person. I work in finance for over 15 years, and I'm skilled at creating budgets. While most find budgets kind of boring, I find them challenging in a good way. And with all of the new construction, with the new subdivisions going out, especially by Bass Road, we will be growing in many sizes here, and a good school board budget will make all the difference. I am also very active in our community. I do a lot of volunteer work. I am currently the precinct committeeman for Boyd O and a state delegate for District C. I also belong to I'm an active member of the League of Women Voters. For the last year and a half, I've been out everywhere getting people to register to vote and educate them on different candidates. We are not nonpartisan. I'm also an active member of NOW. We just finally brought a chapter back here to Northeast Indiana, and our mission is to help women with equal rights. And currently, we're out there registering voters, and also teamed up with the League of Women Voters to make sure that people had the campaign material and were able to see their candidates. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Fritz. Ms. Marple, what qualifies you to be a member of the school board?
Well, I bring a different skill set because I am an educator. And I want to thank these students. In fact, there's a student here that I had in 5th grade, which is just awesome to see how successful he's been. No, I bring a skill set that is different because it really doesn't have to do with construction. It really has to do with academia. I've taught Southwest for 20 years. I actually started out in the district. I was about 25 and taught 6th grade, and then they asked me to teach the Alpha Pullout program. And then from there, I had just had our third child, and my partner, Debbie Stafford, and myself, we decided to open a children's book and toy store named Mr. McGregor's Garden. And so we did that from scratch, and we had it for 15 years. I did a lot of the programming, and we bought the books, we bought the toys, we really just did it all. And then we sold it to Mitchell Books. And once we sold it, that's when I came back to teaching. And I've taught first, second, third, fifth. The only one I think is I didn't teach fourth. So anyway, that gives you a little bit of my background. I also am a graduate of Homestead High School. My husband is also, we were high school sweethearts. In fact, we walked in today and I said, you know, I don't think I would have imagined this when I was going to high school here, that I would be sitting up here talking about running for school board. But it's really important to me that we have someone on the board that understands what is going on in the classrooms, and also to make sure that teachers have a voice. It's been a little difficult in about the last 8 or 9 years. There has been a lot of what I would consider more of a top-down management. So you are, in the elementaries, you're expected to be doing the same thing at the same time. There really isn't a lot of possibility for, say, projects, crossing the curriculum, thematic teaching, which is what we used to do, because we know what the standards are, and then we were able to teach them. So I really am here as an advocate for parents, teachers, students, because I think things have changed and we need to make sure that our students have a diverse way of learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mopper, and thank you to all of the candidates for your responses. I would now like to introduce Libby Minobi to ask our second question of the night.
Thank you, Anthony. Ms. Tokos, you will answer first for our second question this evening. Our second question is, what initiatives or policies will you work to protect if you are elected? Are there any new or specific initiatives or policies you will introduce if elected?
Thank you. I definitely love the dual credit program that Homestead High School has, as well as their internship program. I think it's great that we have different options and career paths for our students, and I'm always going to be open for hearing about new opportunities and ideas for our students. But some of the things that I would potentially present to the board if elected would be, number one, I would propose that the school board meetings be live streamed, and that we allow for more than 30 minutes of collective responses from people in the community. It's certainly not enough time to discuss the things on some of the agendas. Also, I would propose that we change the process in which we have students participate in non-compulsory surveys, tests, and presentations. Currently, parents have to opt out instead of opting in, and I think that's backwards because, quite frankly, there's quite a bit of things that parents would know to actually opt their children out because they don't know that they're presented with those things in the classroom. So I would suggest that we change that. Also, I would like to ensure that policy 5035, which is a selection of supplemental reading materials, be followed. That is currently in place, but I don't believe that it's being regularly followed, and that would allow or require teachers to submit a list of reading materials, supplemental reading materials in the classrooms to the principals, and then I would like to see that be able to be made available to parents upon request. And so that's about it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tokos. Mr. Copley, it's your turn. What initiatives or policies will you work to protect if you are elected? And are there any new or specific initiatives or policies you will introduce if elected?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think back to a listening tour that Dr. Ginder, he's in the back, and Mrs. Fleming's right next to him, and they had a listening tour that I was involved with as well. And basically to meet with the public and ask, hey, what do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about that? And several issues came up loud and clear: the crowding of the class sizes, right? Overcrowding, safe buildings, doing construction on time, on budget, and listening, right? And so I think from advocating that's really my platform that I've been running on. And as we look at, I always like in my leadership styles to form teams, right? Committees, steering committees, to help come up with consensus, collaboration, especially from parents and teachers, combination to help with our kids, right? We've got almost 8,000 kids in the district. And so to be able to listen and bring everybody together to formulate plans, one of it would be bullying and discipline. I can't tell you how many phone calls. Brad Mills is sitting over here. He's our school board president. He and I get regularly about bullying in even the elementary schools, the middle schools, discipline. So I think that's the type of thing where we can form an alliance and form one of these steering committees to address these type of things, and then bring it up to the board with perhaps a revised handbook, revised discipline policy, that type of thing. Another example would be technology. I hear it all the time. People say, hey, do we have too much technology? Do we have not enough? We've got iPads with kindergartners now. And is that too much? Do we need some textbooks back again? If so, what type? So I think that the consensus, bringing people together to formulate those type of action plans is really, really important. One other initiative before I see the yellow card come up, I look at cost quite a bit. I see Jim Copeland here, who was our business manager for many, many years and did an awesome job. And Jim was a fellow fiscal conservative type spender. And I think we look at every line item very closely right now and try to spend wisely. So one suggestion, recommendation, and I know Mr. Mills has been a part of this as well, is to look at our overcrowding and to say, okay, Arcola Elementary, Northwest Allen, they have a building a mile north of Bass Road, Arcola Elementary. Why wouldn't we try to sit down and talk to those guys about using that elementary? The cost of new construction is $400 a square foot right now, which is crazy high. So why couldn't we partner with Northwest Allen to use an underutilized building like Arcola? It's built for 450 kids, 200 are in there now. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. So just out of the box thinking, and those are type of initiatives I'd advocate. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Copley. Ms. Fritz, what initiatives or policies will you work to protect if you are elected? Are there any new or specific initiatives or policies you will introduce if elected?
First of all, I'd like to say SACS has many great policies. With that said, I really like the blended learning policy. The idea that students have the opportunity to use technology to do individual research and come together with other classmates to collaborate is brilliant and will serve them well in their careers. I also believe this technology, along with our student media, could help the board become more transparent. I think video and streaming the school board meetings will not only give students the opportunity to use their skills, but the public would have an opportunity to see what's going on in the board meetings. I have talked to several parents that have schedules that don't allow them to be present at any of the meetings. If we stream the meetings and post them online, like we're doing today, that would allow the public to have more transparency with the school board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fritz. Ms. Moppert, what initiatives or policies will you work to protect if you are elected? And are there any new or specific initiatives or policies you will introduce if elected?
Well, I was curious. I was thinking about this question, and I thought, oh, policy. And so, of course, I have to look it up, the definition, which it really has a lot to do with governance. And I think one of the policies that the last administration created was portrait of a graduate. And I'm not sure if all parents know about that, but it has to do with, it should be up in every classroom. It has to do with creative thinking, critical thinking, communications, collaboration, resilient problem solvers. It's really what teachers, the administrators, are all really trying to work through in the classroom to produce children that do that at the end when they go to college. I thought that was incredible. It really, if you go to project-based learning, PBL has all of those factors in it. And I guess one thing that I would like to see change is that when we're looking at the academic work, let's really make sure that those pieces are included in how we're teaching. We have situations now where we have frameworks going on, and a framework really is like a 15-minute rotation. This is the elementary, but this is really important because it doesn't give you the time to do the portrait of a graduate work, because you really need to be able to, like I said before, cross the curriculum and thematic teaching and do projects. So that's one area that I think that the initial portrait of a graduate is awesome. I guess I would like to see more of that being done in the classroom to support. I also really would like to take a look at technology, especially for our younger ones. There is brain research that's been out for a very long time about fine motor and brain development for little ones. So I think there's some of this research that we need to take a look at to make sure that we're doing the right thing when it comes to the iPads. And I can tell you a story because I just left teaching not very long ago, and my fifth graders arrived and they struggled. I had a third of them struggling to be able to write so I could read it. Those are all fine motor or cutting with scissors. And I know it sounds silly, but these are really important brain development that we need to take a look at. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moppert. And finally, Ms. Veit, what initiatives or policies will you work to protect if you are elected? And are there any newer specific initiatives or policies you will introduce if elected?
Thank you. One of the largest roles of a school board member is to manage the assets, buildings, and infrastructure of a district. And I want to make sure we're growing and expanding the assets and buildings in a fiscally responsible way. Our school district is tasked with doing more with less money each and every year. I want to continue to find ways to support our teachers and students the best way we can. I've knocked on almost 5,000 doors in Southwest Allen County over the last 8 weeks, and there are two things that keep coming up with families in the district. Again, live streaming board meetings. We are probably one of the only school districts in the entire Northeast Indiana region that don't record or live stream our board meetings, but we have the best media department in the state. So if we can do it tonight, I think we can do it every month at our board meetings. And the second thing is the listening tours. I heard a lot of good feedback about the listening tours that happened at the end of last year. So I would like to see those continue. I think another good thing that would be beneficial for our families. Everybody took time out of their day, whether they were students or parents, to attend those sessions. And I think an update from the board or from the administration as to what came out of those conversations, just so the parents know that they were heard. Again, they took time to come. So I think continuing those and I think updating the parents and our families would go a long way.
Thank you, Ms. Veit. And thank you to all of our candidates for their responses. I would now like to introduce Kenny Austin to ask our third question of the night.
Mr. Copley, you will answer our third question first. Our third question is this. Please discuss what your decision-making process is or will be if elected to the school board.
Yeah, thanks, Kenny. I've been blessed. CEO of a large company, I think you learn pretty quickly how to include people, listen to people, and hopefully make good decisions. Sometimes not always easy ones, but sometimes controversial ones too. But I look at those building blocks over the years, quite a few gray hairs. Everybody in this room with a few gray hairs can relate. But I'm a strategic, out-of-the-box thinker. I think an example would have been that example of partnering with Northwest Allen County, right? Where just because we've done something for 1,000 years doesn't always mean it's the right way to do it and that we can't make any changes. So definitely a critical thinker, out of the box, strategic. I'm very process oriented, so I'd like to see a whole plan, not just an idea, but how do we walk that through to fruition. And I guess as I've seen first meeting in here, as I mentioned, where there was 300 people or so in this room, listening is key. And I think in this environment right now, we've got hot topics on both sides of the agenda, right? And a lot of folks with very, very strong opinions one way or the other. And I think we have to bring some degree of decorum and calmness and volume control, if you will, to the room. And so hopefully, I think I've probably learned the hard way just over the years on that, but I think that type of leadership over 20 years goes to help a long way with how to make a critical decision and how to stick with it and explain decisions to others when maybe they don't disagree or they disagree with you. So in some cases, we've had it on the board where we just have to agree to disagree. And so that's kind of my background and personal thoughts on it. I think as we sit in the room and we talk about parents and these steering committees, I think the critical part is that as we get into discipline, as we get into perhaps bullying, textbooks, curriculum, that we form teams and parents have input, just like our teachers do. I think it's critical that between the hours of 8 and 3, the teachers do an awesome job with our kids, but I think there's got to be that handoff, that baton to where the parents are actively involved too, so that consistency holds true and that the message holds true 24 hours a day, not just either while they're in school or while they're at home. So I think that collaboration is really, really key, and I'll continue to be a strong voice behind it and truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Copley. Ms. Fritz, it is your turn. Please discuss what your decision-making process is or will be if elected to the school board.
When presented with a problem or opportunity, I use the same 6-step formula to ensure best results. My first step is to define the problem. I do this by listening and not forming a judgment before I have all the facts. Once the root cause of the problem is determined is when I get to do my outstanding research skills. And that's not just Google, it's going to the publics, seeing what the parents need, what the real issues are, what are some of the possibilities to fix this problem. Even the students should be involved in policy-making decisions. They're there with their peers. They know. After all the facts are in, then we as a team will brainstorm and develop alternative solution and weigh the pros and cons. After what is usually a lot of back and forth, we will have to agree on a solution and make a plan of action. The last step and the most important step is to go back and reevaluate and maybe make some adjustments. Just because you make something a policy one year doesn't mean it's working and you should continue it just because you have it in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fritz. Ms. Moppert, it is your turn. Please discuss what your decision-making process is or will be if elected to the school board.
Well, I think it's interesting that you ask a teacher that question, because when you're in the classroom, you are constantly making decisions based upon what's best for this child, where this person belongs. You're talking to parents, you're collaborating, you're asking people for help. It's a constant trying to make sure what you are doing is best for kids. And I think that skill set from the classroom brought onto the board will be wonderful to have, because it's a very different skill set than everybody else that's speaking tonight. I do believe that you need to collaborate. You certainly need to do your research. And I know that a lot of times we talk about board policies as we could, just a few of them, the fiscal responsibility and taking a look at some other things that are going on. But what's really important here is that you are able to find out and help with things besides that, like the curriculum. There are things that we won't implement it, but we would be the policy makers for that. So when you're looking at the policy that I told you was awesome, which was Portrait of a Graduate, then we're able to take a look at how that's been implemented and is that working. So decision-making is really something that we will have to collaborate with, bring the research to the table, talk to all of the people that are the stakeholders, and go from there. But I have been doing that in the classroom for quite a long time, making decisions right and left every day.
Thank you, Ms. Moppert. Ms. Veit, it is your turn. Please discuss what your decision-making process is or will be if elected to the school board.
Thank you. I've never been one to make decisions with little or no information. I believe involving experts and people with varied opinions when making decisions for a broad group of students or people is especially important. Just in age alone in our district, ranging from age 5 to 18, our students have a wide variety of needs that need to be met by our school district. I most likely fall into two specific types of decision makers, flexible and catalyst. As a flexible decision maker, I'm okay with uncertainty, I'm open-minded in adapting to circumstances, and willing to involve a variety of people in decision-making process. As a catalyst, I prefer action. With any type of decision-making process, the steps, however, should all be the same. Identify the problem, seek information and different solutions, evaluate alternatives, implement the operation or change, and what I believe is the most important step, the one that is always skipped at the end, is to monitor the decision and be willing to change it after you gather data about the impact of the decision you made. At the end of the day, all of our decisions that we make as a district should put the students first.
Thank you, Ms. Veit. Ms. Tokos, it is your turn. Please discuss what your decision-making process is or will be if elected to the school board.
Thank you. Well, when I'm presented with a situation where I need to make a decision, the first thing I want to do is get all the information and from all different perspectives, all stakeholders. And then I'm going to do my own research, and then I'm going to benchmark, and I'm going to listen to the other people on my team to hear what they've heard, because maybe it's not the same thing. Maybe their research is a little bit different. I'm also the kind of person to dig deeper. I'm not lazy. I'm going to ask the questions. I'm going to ask tough questions. I'm okay making decisions that maybe aren't popular, as long as we are always putting the number one stakeholders and the people who are at stake, keeping them at heart and remembering that those are the people we're affecting. So in the school system, I think we always need to make these decisions with our children's best interest in mind. And, as some of them all have already stated, you also have to be willing to adapt. You have to be constantly ready to, review and assess and get feedback, because sometimes we make the wrong decision. And I'm humble enough to acknowledge when I make the wrong decision and then correct it. And you need to make decisions sometimes very quickly. I've been on a lot of committees. I've worked with a lot of people in a lot of different industries throughout my adult life and my career changes. And I get frustrated when people don't do anything. So I am one to move quickly, but it doesn't mean that I'm moving in a way that is negligent. I just work really hard, and I'll put a lot of time and commitment into something that requires my decision, especially if it's going to affect our children. And I also wanted to add that I understand that regardless of the outcome, it's important that we maintain a positive civil discourse, because we're representing the district as a whole. So I know that as a board member, it's imperative that we represent the district in a manner that's respectful.
Thank you, Ms. Tokos, and thank you to the rest of our candidates for their responses. I would now like to introduce Michelle Obioma to ask her fourth question of the night.
Ms. Fritz, you'll answer our fourth question first. Our fourth question is, Southwest Allen County's current referendum, which was approved in 2009, then renewed in 2016, is on the ballot for renewal. This November, residents of Aboit and Lafayette Townships will again be asked to renew SACS referendum. If renewed in November, the SACS operating referendum will last from 2023 to 2030. Do you support its renewal? Why or why not?
I absolutely support the renewal of the referendum. It is crucial. I'm not sure if everyone here knows what's in the referendum, but it totally goes to budget currently for 46 staff members. 43 are classroom teachers, 2 are guidance counselor, and 1 school police officer. Once the referendum is passed, and I wholeheartedly hope everybody in this room votes for it, because voting for it helps our success in our school system, we will add 14 classroom teachers, 7 guidance counselor/social worker, 2 police officers, 1 central office administrator, and 1 support staff, and 1 alternative school administrator. I think this is a good start, but we're also, we're probably going to have to build more elementary schools or expand them, so we're probably going to even need more teachers than this, and it's going to really put a strain on our budget. So without this, we won't be able to hire all this additional 26 new staff, and I'm not even quite sure how we would fund the 46 staff members that are currently budgeted in the referendum. I understand that last time it was voted with over a 70% success rate, which is really great, and I hope this year it's even a higher number, because it's a very small price to pay on your property tax to live in such a great school system, and I think the investment is very worthwhile. Thank you.
Ms. Smoppert, it is your turn. Do you support the referendum's renewal? Why or why not?
Well, absolutely, and I reiterate what she says. I mean, I'm not going to go back over the teachers that we would be able to hire, but they are really necessary. I just left Covington Elementary, and I know right now they have 860 students. When I was there, it was just packed. And I know that the 5th grade at Covington now has 32 students in every class. We have got to pass the referendum. It's really important. I don't see any other way if it wouldn't pass like Diane. I can't imagine, though, in this community that it wouldn't pass, because that's not happened before. But it is that important to our students and families. And if you don't have a student or have never had a student, part of the reason that people come in and purchase homes are to be in this community, to be able to go to SACS schools. So it benefits you even if you don't have a child here. So yeah, absolutely, yes for SACS.
Ms. Veit, it is your turn. Do you support the referendum's renewal? Why or why not?
Absolutely. The referendum to retain 46 current staff members and add 26 is really important. I believe to our students and our teachers, for the community to show that we're supporting our teachers and our students in our district. The most important part to me, or I guess the part that I'm most excited about, is the 14 new classroom teachers, a social worker, and 2 additional police officers. Again, for safety in our schools and our students. Over the last decade, from 2009 to 2019, 84% of Indiana public schools have sought referendums to provide additional fundings for their school. And I hope that our community continues to support our schools, our students, and they support yes on the referendum.
Ms. Tokos, it is your turn. Do you support the referendum's renewal? Why or why not?
Yes, I do support it, because it's my understanding that without it, we would have to forego 30 teachers that we currently have on staff, and we would not be able to fund the additional teachers that we need for our obviously growing community. And we want to be able to properly serve our students. So I definitely support it for those reasons. I don't want to see us lose any teachers, and I realize we definitely need more teachers. I would like to have seen more resource officers included and a little less guidance counselors, but that's just my opinion. I'm hopeful that the guidance counselors that we do bring into Southwest Allen County, our old school counselors, and not coming in to promote any ideology that we see from the American School Counselor Association. But yes, I definitely support it, and I also believe that we have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers here. We need to be good stewards with the money, and so I think it would make sense for us to really work towards bringing that funding necessary for these teachers into the operations budget so that we are not reliant upon taxpayers 7 years from now. I never want to be in the position again where we have to worry about letting go of teachers.
Mr. Copley, it is your turn. Do you support the referendum's renewal? Why or why not?
Yeah, home run question. Show of hands. How many people in the room support the referendum? I'm just curious. Yeah, me too. Me too. And President Mills and I have a little side wager on what percentage we're going to pass this puppy by, but we think it's going to pass by a home run. And I'm really optimistic and encouraged for that. I don't want to be the one to have to lay 43 teachers off. I know nobody in this room does, right? And that's the impact if we don't pass this thing. And I can tell you, I've put out 23 signs, vote yes for SACS. Personally, I think it is going to pass. Strategically, though, I think we have to look and we say, okay, if we listen to our customers, right, all of our 8,000 students, their parents, and we listen, I am more concerned about a year from now. Because as everybody's talked, we're growing at the seams, we're busting at the seams. Everybody who drives along Bass Road sees the construction, the south end along Ernst, Lower Huntington, know the building growth over there. As a board, we hired a McKibben demography firm that does all kinds of analysis in school districts about growth, right? They look at the population, kids coming in, trend lines, et cetera. And it says we're going to grow by at least 500 kids over the next 10 years. My big question in here, of course, I support the referendum. I think it's going to pass. My question is, how many people in the room are going to support a referendum a year from now that's construction related? Show of hands. Like, are we all in favor of construction? That's the thing. Then the other question becomes, are you in favor of construction if I tell you it might be a $50 to $100 million cost? And I say that because we not only need to either add on to Summit or perhaps add a new elementary, either north or south, or can we partner with Arcola? But the other challenge is we've got, probably $30 to $40 million of roof needs, parking lot needs, LED lighting retrofits. There's a lot of things the district needs. So I'm kind of extremely optimistic about next Tuesday and passing this current operating referendum, but I'm really nervous about where we're going to be a year from now, and I think we all have to start even thinking about that right now. So anyway, give that one some thought, because that's one of those consensus building targets where we have to really bring everybody together to say, okay, does this make sense? Do we bring it to the public once again? Obviously inflation's really high, supply chain's still messed up, so we have to think about where we're going to be 12 months from now.
Thank you to our candidates for their responses. I would now like to introduce Ye-Yoon Song to ask our 5th question of the night.
Hello. Ms. Moppert, you will answer our 5th question first. And this is our 5th question. What is the school's duty in supporting diversity and encouraging inclusion across the elementary, middle, and high school buildings?
Well, it's interesting that you should ask that question, because I think it was in '99 that the corporation rewrote the diversity statement, and I was on the corporation committee. Actually, I just read it the other day, again, just to kind of take a look at what we had written, and I still think it holds true today, because I was wondering if they needed to take a look at it and redo it. It's really important when you are looking at students across the board. You are looking at students who vary in what they believe, what they don't believe, what their parents believe, what they don't believe. There are so many things that come into play when you're trying to make decisions about things like diversity. You have to really do your homework. You have to make sure that when you write the statement or you are speaking about it, that you are all inclusive. And like I said, that was really important. And just going back to look at that statement, was just very interesting. But no, the culture needs to be diverse. I was so excited. I mean, if you just even look at the panel of students here, all diverse, and it's awesome to see. And I think we are, in this corporation, very respectful of each other and what we all bring to the table.
Thank you for your response. Ms. White, it's now your turn. What is the school's duty in supporting diversity and encouraging inclusion across the elementary, middle, and high school buildings?
Well, I think as a district and a school, our kids, regardless of any diversity, deserve to come to school to have a safe and effective learning environment at the end of the day for every student. I think that we owe our kids, in our divisive culture right now, we owe it to our next generation to do better. And at least at the local level in a community as a school board, I think we need to show our kids that we can work together with our administrations and our teachers for all of our students. At the end of the day, we need to prepare our students to enroll in higher education, to enlist in the military, or to be employed. Our end goal in any decision we make with our students should be aimed at only that goal. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. Ms. Tokis, it's now your turn. What is the school's duty in supporting diversity and encouraging inclusion across the elementary, middle, and high school buildings?
I absolutely support being inclusive of all children, regardless of their background, their socioeconomic background, their religion, their race, their sexual orientation. And I know that's a controversial topic. I believe that anyone that we have working in our school system should be a good person, should be caring, should be compassionate, and never, ever should treat a child different for any of those reasons. However, I also believe that there's certain things that we shouldn't be talking about in the school that need to stay in the home. But when it comes to diversity, absolutely. I think diversity makes us more whole, makes us better. I think it's important that we understand one another, have respect for our cultures, ask questions, share, and talk about it. And I think that our youth today are amazing. I think that the way that they embrace diversity, inclusivity is beyond impressive. And I couldn't be more proud of the kids that we see today. We've grown a lot, we've matured as a society, and there's still a lot of room for improvement, and I get it, and I support those things. And I have zero tolerance for anyone that treats a child differently for any of the reasons that I said before. So I do take it serious, I do encourage it, and I think it's wonderful. The more diverse that we can get in our community, I think it will only make us better and stronger. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. Mr. Copley, it is now your turn. What is the school's duty in supporting diversity and encouraging inclusion across the elementary, middle, and high school buildings?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I concur with everybody up on the podium tonight talking about that. Totally inclusive. We've got almost 8,000 kids in the district, and from every race, ethnicity, economic background. It's awesome. And I think in today's world, that's what we see, right? And that's just part of it. And I think we have built SACS, and I see former school board members, current school board members, administrators here tonight, and they've built SACS into, I think, one of the best districts in the state that we can all be extremely proud of. We have so many cool things going on as a district. I look around at our graduation rates. Dr. Ginder gets sick of me asking about metrics and measurements, but he's all over it. Our test scores going up, going down. What's our graduation rate? What's our ADM, our count, right? Are we adding students? After school activities. You look around, the band is going to the state for the 35th straight year, the state championship, to compete. I mean, we have phenomenal tradition up here. It's a lot to be proud of. We got a world-class radio and TV program with Mr. Schenkel and his group. Band, choir, dance, so many after-school things. Dual credit, it's been mentioned up here a few times. Dual credit, AP. We've got numerous kids going to college with their associate's degree, saving mom and dad 2 years of added costs from, say, IU, Purdue, or any other campus. So we have so many phenomenal things. Let's be real. We do have our challenges, right? I hear, as I mentioned, time and time again about bullying and maybe a lack of discipline, especially at the elementary and middle school levels, which I think is a real problem. We as a district, and I'm not sure if everybody realizes this, we lose 300 kids a year to outside schools. Canterbury, Concordia, Lourdes, Dwenger, et cetera. So for us to grow by 100 kids, that we know we're losing 300 right out of the gate. So I think these are constant issues that we as a team, as a board, as a group, as a leadership team have to take into consideration, especially as we look at these building trends, construction trends. And so, the other thing, one thing to me, and it's definitely just my opinion, but I've got a granddaughter, and I look at it, okay, I'm inclusive, I love it, I love the school corporation, but one thing that you can count on me, like it or not, is I don't want boys participating in girls' sports. And that may be controversial, but I think we're here as a society. It's coming. It's right around the corner, and so you can count on me to defend on that one, but thank you.
Thank you for your response. Ms. Fritz, it's now your turn. What is the school's duty in supporting diversity and encouraging inclusion across the elementary, middle, and high school buildings?
I think diversity is very important. I think we live in a world that is now global. My business and even the students on this panel will probably work globally. And to prepare them for that, we have to be able to accept other people's cultures and work together and learn about each other and communicate, on so many different levels. And I think that it starts in the elementary school with teaching kids for acceptance and letting them know that not everybody is the same, not everybody is going to look like you. I think it's important to make sure that everybody is included. When you exclude people, it's an injustice not only to the person that's excluded, but to the others that lose that opportunity to maybe learn something about somebody else. And I think part of that is we really have to be united on a bullying policy and make sure that we have a safe environment for our students, that they feel like they can come and be themselves despite what religion, ethnic background, financial background. At school, it should be a level playing ground. I know that's unrealistic right now, but in true fashion, if we all just came together to the school to learn from each other, that would be a perfect world.
Thank you for your response. And thank you to all of our candidates for the responses. And now I would like to introduce Stella Boothman to ask our final question of the night.
Good evening, everyone. Ms. Veit, you will answer first. Our final question is this. Personally, I have seen an increase in the need for mental health support amongst my peers. If elected, how will you address this concern on a K-12 level?
Thank you, Stella, for your question. Mental health is very important, not just to me, but in America right now. The CDC reports in 2019 that more than 1 in 3 high school students have experienced persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. This is a 40% increase since 2009. Approximately 1 in 6 youth reported making a suicide plan in the past year. That's an increase in 44% since 2009. Our students and our teachers need resources. Our teachers aren't counselors, they're educators. We need to let them teach. Mental health is not just a problem for our students. While the numbers are really bad for our teenagers, obviously, I think it's probably just as high in our younger elementary school students, probably with our teachers. And like I said, in America right now, we're struggling with mental health as a country. I'm excited that the referendum will add a social worker, and I support any other additional programs that would give our teachers and our students resources to assist with mental health.
Thank you, Ms. Veit. Ms. Tokus, it is your turn. Personally, I have seen an increase in need for mental health support amongst my peers. If elected, how will you address this concern on a K-12 level?
Yeah, I take this very serious. This is very near and dear to my heart because this is something that I've been involved in for many years of my career prior to owning businesses. And I clearly do see a need. But I love the fact that Southwest Allen County has extended their contract with Crosswinds to provide the free counseling for children, as well as on the back of the IDs, there's the call for help, which I thought was really good to have there. But I think, making sure that the teachers are educated on being able to recognize these things. At the same time, they're not counselors and they should be focused on teaching. But being able to recognize maybe some of the signs, and maybe even having, some of those trainings for the older students in high school. I think that's helpful to be able to recognize that amongst your peers, because sometimes you guys are the first ones that see it, right? So being able to reach out and let somebody know so that we can respond to that. But I also want to point out, I think it's just as equally important that we not be a part of the problem, that the education not be a part of creating the mental illness. So I think it's really important for adults and school board members and leaders in our schools to lead by example and make sure that what we're providing in the schools is truth-based and not creating more confusion with our kids. And so, that goes along the lines of the critical race theory and the gender theory that I talked about before. I feel like those ideological teachings are creating more problems with our students. It's confusing them, it's inappropriate, and it's experimental. So I don't support any of that, but at the same time, I do take mental illness very serious, and I realize that there's a rise in that, and maybe we need to ask ourselves why. And I don't think we can blame it all on COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tokus. Mr. Copley, personally, I have seen an increase in the need for mental health support amongst my peers. If elected, how will you address this concern on a K-12 level?
Thank you, Stella. It's near and dear to my heart as well. I had a parent affected by this personally, and it's tragic. And I think through the older we get, as we look at mental health, I think the referendum is going to be a big deal. Obviously, the number of teachers is going to add to it, but as everybody has said, between Stephanie and Amanda, the added counselors hopefully can catch more and more issues on the front end, as I like to call it, right, before it becomes crazy and out of control. And then certainly with added school resource officers, or SROs as we call them, on the back end when you need them, right? And it's like, I think you have to have the balance of both. And as Amanda said, the addition of Crosswinds was a group, local counseling firm that we added recently, and I'm really happy the board added them. They're local. They not only help the teachers, but also the students, right? If we have an issue, we can start to address it early and hopefully catch it before it becomes a problem. And it's interesting. Being on the board the past year, I had an opportunity to attend a conference. This was over in Champaign, Illinois, and it was conducted for school board superintendents and school board members, and it was all about school safety and mental health. And I'm certainly not an expert per se in it, but it was interesting listening and learning, because it was led by a retired school superintendent and a retired police chief, right? Two people who knew what's going on in a school. And they talked about every tragic incident out there, from Columbine to Sandy Hook, Uvalde, in grave detail. And it was fascinating, because the one common thread in all of those tragic incidents was that generally the boy posted a note at some point, whether it be online, whether it be a handwritten note, whether it be a comment. And unfortunately, in each of the cases, somebody looked the other way. A parent, friend, teacher, somebody looked the other way and said, well, my Tommy wouldn't do that. He's just acting out. And I think really the message as we move forward has to be, if you see something, say something, right? Even if we think it's just somebody saying something or acting out, I think we can do something about it quicker. And that would be my guidance on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Copley. Ms. Fritz, it's your turn. Personally, I have seen an increase in the need for mental health support amongst my peers. If elected, how will you address this concern on a K-12 level?
I think mental health in our school system is very important. I agree that it can be very dangerous if we don't acknowledge and help people that are suffering from mental illness. I really like that the SACS already has programs that support positive mental health, including working with parents and staff and having school psychologist and adding a social worker. We also have great connections in our community that work with students and family. Just like everything else, we need to start talking about it. We need to recognize it. Not only do our teachers and administrators need to be trained, I believe every person in this building that has contacts with students, even the cafeteria workers, if they had the skills and they saw some signs and you just pulled somebody over and said, hey, what's going on? Are you okay today? You don't seem like yourself. That means a world to people. Sometimes, especially young students, they're just learning the world. They're learning new things, and they don't know how to reach out, and they don't always know the right resources. But if we were able to do simple training, we would be able to cut our resources, we can't afford a social worker in every school, unfortunately. That would be a great service for us, but if we can't, then we need to be able to solve this problem as a community. And like I said, communication, talking about it, and recognizing it is probably the best tools that we can offer at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Fritz. Ms. Moppert, personally, I have seen an increase in the need for mental health support amongst my peers. If elected, how will you address this concern on a K-12 level?
This is near and dear to my heart. It's been, I don't know how many years ago that I actually wrote my own lessons because I was very concerned that students didn't really understand mental health. I would make it look like an umbrella, and then you have the different components like spiritual and academic, and I think it's important that we as a corporation really buy into that we need to teach students about their mental health and what that encompasses. Because once they understand it, they can then start to recognize, oh, my social life is not going so well. Okay, so I'm not feeling well about that. It's impacting my other mental health, and you actually then can discuss it. I think it really helped my 5th grade students. I know that our counselor always said to me that she could tell that the kids in my classroom really understood things very well when she came in to do guidance. I think that it's something that we are missing, and I think it's always amazing because kids, I think sometimes we underestimate what they can learn and understand and then be able to apply. I also wanted to mention, because other people have mentioned crosswinds, I had a personal experience with crosswinds with a student, and I can tell you they outdid themselves. They were just absolutely outstanding, and I want you all to know that they really did a fabulous job. And then the other issue that I have with mental health is social media. I think you can look at the statistics, you can look at the suicide rate for students, and when phones really came into play, I think it's something that we need to. My last year in 5th grade, I saw things on phones that I couldn't believe that a 10-year-old would have access to, and I do think it is. You're going to get your bullying on that. You're going to get all kinds of things. Dr. Ginder suggested a book to me called Hollowed Out, and I recommend that to any parent who has a child on social media. It's excellent. So anyway, with that, like I said, I think it was so important to me that I taught it.
Thank you all for your responses. Michelle Obiama will now return to the podium as we move on to the candidates' closing statements.
We have finished our questions for the evening. We will now allow the candidates to make their final statements. I would like to remind the candidates that you will have 2 minutes to make your closing statements. Our timekeeper will hold up a yellow card at 1 minute 30 seconds and a red card at 2 minutes. Ms. Tokus, you will go first. Mr. Copley will go second. Ms. Moppert will go third. Ms. Veit will go fourth. And Ms. Fritz will go fifth. Ms. Tokus, it is your turn to make your closing statement.
Thank you. I'm running for school board to be a voice for parents who I believe have a fundamental right and responsibility to their children's education. I intend to thoroughly review all programs and policies being introduced into our district, and I will push back against progressive ideologies. I want to restore trust between the parents and the schools by having transparency in the classrooms and in the boardrooms. If elected, I will bring common sense, critical thinking, commitment, and courage to this board. So I would appreciate your vote on November 8th. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Tokus. Mr. Copley, it is your turn now to make your closing statement.
Well, first of all, thanks for coming out tonight. Truly appreciate Mr. Pieper, student government. I hate talking about me, so I'm glad this part's 2 minutes and we can be done. I've been really, really blessed. I from a career standpoint, I kind of look at it, I really want to be here. I don't have to be here, and so I think I want to continue to serve, help the district. I think we have so much to offer, and I think challenges, opportunities all exist, and I think I can help get us there, and I really would like to. I'd be honored to get your vote. Like I said, I've been in senior leadership for 20 plus years. I think that really helps during times like this. I've learned the hard way, hard knocks, right? Definitely not more talented than the next person, but just probably a harder worker. And I think that's kind of like where we are as a community, right? I think Southwest Allen is just a hard-working, grinding community that just works hard and hopefully succeeds, right? That's me, CEO of a large solar construction project company, and I think that helps, right? As everything we've talked about tonight with diversity, culture, how you make decisions, and these things are real world applicable topics on the board. As you guys have seen who have come to board meetings regularly, we get faced with quite a few issues right now, and they're only going to come faster, right? We can all anticipate what those issues are going to be the next year, 2, 3 years from now. So I think for all the students, thank you guys for being involved tonight. It's awesome you guys are taking a leadership role. Keep it up. Give back to Southwest Allen as you guys are successful down the road. Give back, volunteer. You can't do enough of it. But thank you so much for everybody being here, and I would be honored with one of your 2 votes. And thanks to all the participants. It is a lot of work, and we all appreciate you guys being out here. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Copley. Ms. Moppert, it is now your turn to make your closing statement.
Well, I was at the board meeting last night, and I have to say I was a very proud teacher. When I was teaching, I did belong to SACTA, which is the Southwest Allen County Teachers Association. I'm very proud to be affiliated with that and that they are backing me. At the school board, at the meeting, I thought it was Dr. Ginder got up and really thanked SACTA, the bargaining committee, for working hard, and really thanked them for being so amiable. And then Mr. Henley, who was there last night, 5th grade teacher at Covington, he got up and responded in kind. It was awesome to see. Our teachers love where we are. We love teaching in Southwest. And I just wanted to mention that I'm very happy to be sponsored by them. They're awesome. I also want to say that when we talk about voices, parents have voices, students have voices, and I really want to make sure that teachers have voices. I said before, in the last 8 or 9 years, I really haven't felt like I have had much of a voice as a teacher, and I know that my colleagues have felt the same way. We have so much to offer when it comes to administration asking us to try something out, because we absolutely love what we're doing. So what I have to say is please vote for me on November 8th. This has been a wild ride, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Moppert. Ms. Veit, it is now your turn to make your closing remarks.
Thank you. Again, I'm going to start and end with gratitude. My website, my Facebook page has all the information about why I'm running and why I believe I'm qualified. But I really would like to thank, again, the Homestead students and student government and student media for live streaming and hosting us tonight. We have a great group of students in the back as well. How many of you students are 18 and you're going to vote on November 8th? Okay, so I see a couple hands. And for the first time, and I hope you guys realize this, you're going to be voting for someone who's setting policy that can affect you right now directly, as well as your school day every day. So thank you for stepping up and hosting this forum. I appreciate your leadership and the fact that you believe this election is important enough that you get to know each of the candidates and what we bring to the table. This is a great example of what our students are capable of achieving. And secondly, I want to just thank my supporters and people that have reached out to me since I announced my candidacy in July. I've met wonderful people in this community that I never would have gotten to meet, and the amount of emails and messages and text messages and phone calls has really kind of restored my faith in humanity. So in a very divisive community that we're in elections, even at the school board level, get really weird questions, and I'm just really encouraged, and I just really appreciate the community and those that have reached out to encourage me. It's solidified by the fact that we have such a great community here at Southwest. So I'd appreciate your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Veit. Ms. Fritz, it is now your turn to make your closing statement.
Thank you. I would like to start by thanking everybody in this room for being here, and the students and all the hard work that you put into this. I don't know of any other school board race that is putting on a forum like this. And I understand all the hard work that went into it, and I truly appreciate it. As far as why you should vote for me, I have been advocating for public education most of my life. When I found out that Indiana had such a large surplus, I believe all of it should go into education. And I believe that so strongly. I have sent multiple emails, letters, postcards, greeting cards to Governor Holcomb, our senators, our congressmen, every state legislator, even the ones that don't represent us here in Allen County. I believe that that investment should come to us, because education is the most important asset that we can offer. And once again, I'd like to thank my family and friends that have supported me, and I've learned so much in this campaign, and it was great to get to know most of my neighbors, and I realized that this community is even greater than I had anticipated before I started this race. So I'm really grateful that I had this opportunity to run. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fritz, and thank you all for your responses. Stella Boothman will now return to the podium for some closing remarks.
This concludes Student Government's 2022 School Board Candidate Forum. We would like to thank all of our candidates for their participation. In addition, we would like to thank Homestead Student Media for live broadcasting tonight's forum, the Homestead custodial staff for setting up the room for tonight's event, and Homestead's FCCLA Club for providing refreshments. On behalf of Homestead Student Government, thank you all for coming and have a great night.
Touchdown, Homestead! Dribbles in, mid-range jumper up. He got it! Zach Kruger hit the shot.